Members present are John Tehan, Bob Shabbat, Andy Marco, Rebecca Sinoski, and myself. So before we get going tonight, one thing I'd like to talk a little bit about the upcoming public hearing here. We're going to run the public hearing tonight until 9:30 p.m. You know, that way it should give a good couple of solid hours for people to talk. We're going to continue it. So it's not going to close tonight. So the way this is going to work, the applicant's going to give their presentation. You know, then the commission will ask a few questions, then we're going to open it up to the public. I'm not going to limit the time people have to speak tonight. The only thing I ask is that, you know, just don't keep repeating the same things, just to kind of keep things moving along. You know, when your turn is up. So, and the public should address their questions to the commission, and then we'll funnel them to the applicant if necessary. That way, you know, there's some sort of, what we're trying to avoid is a free-for-all, like a back and forth between the applicants. So it's kind of, things are happening in order, people are being heard. So that's the ground rules for that tonight. So that being said, item C, applications for receipt, PZ-22-11. We have a special permit for home occupation per section 11.01 for propane delivery at 163 Ruby Road, owner applicant David Litwin. So that's just being received. Yeah. All right, so we'll do that again. Yep, you're welcome. So applications for receipt tonight, PZ-22-11, special permit for home occupation per section 11.01 for propane delivery, 163 Ruby Road, owner applicant David Litwin. That's just been received tonight, correct, Mike?
Yeah, and
all right.
We have one other application just for receipt. It's PZ-22-13. It's a text amendment application for section 12.15. So I will be submitting that to CROG, and we'll have that for the public hearing first meeting in September.
Okay, thank you. All right, item D, public hearing, PZ-22-10. This is a zone change application, R80 to SDZ, related to a zone change in concept plan application for section 12.15.4B, Zero River Road, MBL 34009-0A, 34009-0B, 34009-0C, owner Barini Circle Associates, LLC, 13 and Pearlton LLC, 13 Ashen LLC, Bring LLC, 16, applicant Thomas Cody. So is the applicant here? Yeah, now we're working.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Tom Cody. I'm an attorney at the firm of Robinson and Cole. Our office is located at 280 Trumbull Street in Hartford, Connecticut. And I'm here on behalf of the applicant, NHG Acquisitions, LLC. This application is a joint effort of Hillwood, which is a US-based development company with projects in many states across the country and in several other countries. And the New Haven Group, which is a development and commercial real estate services group founded by Stephen Glace. Before we get started with our presentation, just a couple of housekeeping items. Legal notices were mailed to all of the owners of abutting property on July 6th. That mailing went out by certified mail, return receipt requested. We have uploaded the certified mail receipts into the application file. In addition, on July 8th, signs were posted all along the public street frontage adjoining the property. The signs advertised the public hearing being held this evening. We've also uploaded the sign locations map and photographs of the signs to the application file. And then finally, although not required, our team did hold a community meeting last week on July 13th to share information about this application with anyone who was able and wanted to attend. We estimate that about 50 people attended the meeting, and we very much appreciated the public's interest in the application and hearing about it. So we are showing a PowerPoint this evening to sort of guide our presentation. And here is an outline for our presentation. We're going to move through this pretty quickly, but we'll start with an introduction for both the client and the professional team. We will review the strategic development zone process that the commission recently enacted. We'll show you the site location and the specific zone change that's been requested on the zoning map. We'll discuss the consistency of the application with the plan of conservation and development. We will also describe for you the results of a municipal fiscal impact study that we had conducted by a firm with expertise in that field. I'll turn the floor over at that point to Jeffrey Fitzgerald from Bowler Engineering, and he will discuss walk you through the conceptual master plan that's been prepared and is a part of the application, as well as comparable building types that are anticipated for the project. Colleen Byrne will discuss the preliminary traffic assessment that was completed by Solly Engineering. I'll return and provide a summary of the application, describe the next steps in the process should this application be approved, and also describe for you additional studies and investigations and reports that our team would be working on. So let's begin with just a quick introduction to our team. This slide right here shows you across the top some of the principles of the applicant and the applicant's entities, including Gary Frederick, who is an executive vice president with Hillwood. Gary is here this evening. He's going to speak in just a minute. Nathan Kirshner and Casey Roskowski are both development director and development managers with Hillwood. Casey is here with us this evening, as well as Stephen Glace, who's the president and the founder of the New Haven Group. Along the bottom of the screen, you can see some of the professionals on the team. Actually, up on the far right, you can't see it's blocked out by the inset on the screen there, but Jeffrey Fitzgerald is a professional engineer with Bowler Engineering. Chaz Evans also here. The next picture is myself providing legal counsel to the applicants, and then Luke Morrow and Colleen Byrne with Solly Engineering, and finally Chuck Corsi, president of Corsi and Company, who's providing community relations services for the project. I would note then, in summary, for this sort of the professional team, you've got Bowler Engineering and Solly Engineering, both Connecticut-based companies, providing you with the site, civil, and traffic engineering services for the project. So right now, I'd like to introduce Gary Frederick. He is an executive vice president with Hillwood. He's responsible for industrial land and building acquisitions, development, and leasing for Hillwood's United States Northeast region. He has a few words to share with you about Hillwood and its interest in the project.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Hillwood. Before we get to this part of the map and I'd like to make a comment on the previous slide that shows our team. We're responsible for bringing in a team of professionals and they're, as Tom pointed out, they're local firms that do this in Connecticut and New England, including engineering, legal, and then our community relations consultant. I'd like to acknowledge to the board and to the folks in the audience a misstep by Hillwood of retaining a predecessor to Chuck that made a misstep in the community with some community outreach. It was well intended, but not very well received. And we apologize for that and take responsibility for it. And we have eliminated them from the project and hope to go forward and learn from our mistakes. But I wanted to acknowledge that before I got started. So let me tell you a little bit about Hillwood. Again, my name is Gary Frederick. I've 23 plus years with Hillwood. And most of that time I've been responsible for Hillwood's operations in the Northeast United States. Hillwood is a national player in this industry. And we build logistics and distribution centers. That's the vast majority of what we do. It's the sort of heartbeat of the supply chain where we build these large facilities that are important in terms of keeping store shelves filled, keeping grocery stores filled, and providing a means for e-commerce companies to be able to deliver product to your house with somewhat amazing capabilities. But if it wasn't for the buildings that we build, and you can see they're all across America, and there's a good bit of concentration in the Northeast that's been on my watch. That is what supports the supply chain and brings goods ultimately to the consumer. So we've been at it about 35 years. Like I said, I've been there 23, and it's representative of we're a top 5 firm in our industry, you know, we're not a public company, but there's plenty on the internet about us. We're actually a privately held company, and we are privately held by the Perot family based in Dallas, Texas. So most people know who Mr. Ross Perot is or was. He's deceased now. He ran for president. He's an independent businessman and sort of an icon of conservatism in American politics. I work for his son, Ross Perot Jr. He's about my age, and he is building on the legacy of his dad and the industrial real estate business, which we're showing here is sort of the lifeblood of Hillwood and one of Ross's larger business interests. This project that we're proposing in Willington would be what we call a build to suit for a large user. And the building, I think, on the application is shown as a 1.5 million square feet. It could be somewhat smaller than that. That's kind of the maximum impact that we're showing on our application. And when we find a tenant, we'll build the building to their exact specifications. So it's hard to say exactly what the exact size of the building would be. We had some conversation when we were at the pack house last week that the tenant itself is not known at this point. This is a make an investment, get a site ready so that we can attract one of these large customers that will for sure be a household name because a building of 1 million square feet or more requires a very substantial tenant to be able to underwrite the financial requirements of a lease. But this is this map shows clusters of these very large buildings in the key industrial markets of the US. We have recently expanded into New England. We have a completed building in North Haven, Connecticut. We have a project underway in North Andover, Massachusetts. And we have several sites under contract such as this one where we will hopefully have the opportunity to bring the developments in. This again is where the products that we all buy and consume come from. The nature of the logistics business has shifted in recent years, particularly since the pandemic, to where product is needed closer to the customer because the customer is demanding better and faster service. So you'll see a big cluster of product kind of in the mid-Atlantic, Eastern Pennsylvania sector. And that's in some cases becoming just too darn far to service the New England population. And so that's what brings us to New England is the need for closer proximity to the consumer base. He said up to 6. Oh, I guess I got one more maybe. This is just a drill down on our business in the Northeast. Like I said, I encourage you to Google Hillwood, Google Gary Frederick, and you'll get a taste of projects that we've worked on here across the country as well as locally. I think I will now turn it back over to Tom to kind of walk through the process here tonight. I don't know if the board had any questions for me, or we could save that for later.
We're going to save that for later.
Thanks.
Let's get through your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, thank you. So quick review of the SDZ process that you recently adopted and incorporated into the zoning regulations. When our team, representatives of our team, first met with town staff to discuss the property that's involved in this application, we discussed with the staff, the Planning and Zoning Commission's work at the time on the draft SDZ regulation. And we learned that, the purpose of this new zone would be to encourage focused growth, to spur economic development and activity, and to expand the town's tax base. In April of this year, the commission adopted the amendment. It became a part of the regulations. You have in this new SDZ 2 different processes. One's referred to as a traditional process. One's referred to as a proactive process. This application is under the proactive process of your regulation. And I think, as you know, this works a little bit differently than a traditional rezoning application might work. And specifically, what's different about it is that the applicant has to provide you with considerably more information than you might otherwise be getting in a straight zone change application. So what are those differences? Well, first off, we have to prepare a conceptual master plan for the property. We've got to describe for you what type of land use is proposed, what size building is being planned, how would the site be designed and laid out, how would parking and access function, and other key aspects of what would be included in the project. Keep in mind that the conceptual master plan is not a final site plan yet. The regulations describe it as a 30% level of design. And this means that many of the specific details have not been worked out yet. And frankly, that is intentional, because the commission, as we understand this process, the commission wants to see this concept at the 30% level and decide whether to approve that or not before the applicant moves forward and prepares the specific plans that would be needed to accompany a site plan and special permit application. So if the commission were to approve this SDZ rezoning, a special permit would be required. That would require a public hearing. That special permit would have to have a full site plan, a 100% level detailed site plan accompanying that. If an inland wetlands permit is required, then an inland wetlands permit application would have to be filed, and the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission could itself decide to have a public hearing if it was in the public interest to do so. If the Wetlands Commission decided to have a public hearing, then that would occur prior to the special permit public hearing. After the local reviews are done, there are several state level permits and approvals that a project of this nature would be required to obtain, including from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, a stormwater general permit, and a subsurface sewage disposal permit, since this site does not have public sewer to the site. The Department of Transportation and the Office of the State Traffic Administration would also be involved in the review of the traffic impacts through the certificate of operation process. So this is a very long process. We have just begun. We have a long way to go, and certainly a long way before any construction would be authorized to occur. Finally, I think there's one very important part of the regulation that you should bear in mind. Your regulations provide that if you approve this zone change application to SDZ, the applicant must bring you and get approval of a full site plan, including the special permit, within 1 year, or else the SDZ expires. It would expire and it would revert to the zoning of the property would revert to the existing R80 zoning. So the commission and the town are fully protected here, because even if this is approved, the applicant has to bring forward to you a site plan and special permit that you would approve. If you don't approve that, then that zoning will go away. It will expire and revert to the R80 zoning. So let's turn to the property in question. I'm going to show you here site location map. A little hard to read here in the gymnasium, but very quickly, running diagonally, of course, from the lower left to the upper right part of the screen is Interstate 84. You can see in the green boxes the call outs for exits 69, 70, and 71. The subject site is about 160 acres in size. It's located just east and adjacent to exit 70 of the highway. The site also has street frontage on River Road. This location is very, very good because it is so close to the interstate highway and it has direct access to entrance and exit ramps to the highway. And when Colleen speaks to you in a few minutes, she'll show you an exhibit that explains exactly how close and convenient to the highway this site really is. Now, the use that's proposed in the application is a warehousing use. It's a use that's permitted in this zone district with special permit approval. And really, as Gary suggested, this use wants to be at a location exactly like this, so close to the highway where so much of the traffic is coming and going to and from. That's ideal for this type of application. So the zone change, the specifics of it, here I'll show you the zoning map. This is the existing zoning map. And right here in the middle, right there. And by the way, north is to the left. So this is spun 90 degrees counterclockwise. And so you've got north to the left, 84 here. Here's the property right there. Currently R80. There are 3 parcels involved in this. 1, 2, 3. I will just make a note here. This little site right here where the gas station is, this is included in the zone change, but this applicant has no intent to include that in any site plan or special permit. We have no intent to incorporate that into it. It is included simply to have it rezoned to SDZ. But there you go, 160 acres just adjacent to the highway. And then if the application is approved, your zoning map would now show this SDZ designation around this same 3 parcels right there, right next to exit 70. So let's turn to the plan of conservation and development. We've studied this early on, and we were struck by the fact that the plan really talks about, in several respects, issues that are of great concern and interest to the community, and the fact that this site really dovetails nicely with that. I'm going to zoom in on that portion of the map there with the project site. The project site is roughly right here. And what you can see is that a portion of this area has been called out in the plan as a possible area for evaluating business zoning potential. The POCD also stresses that the town should strive to be ready, willing, and able to help companies looking to bring economic development to Willington. And that is exactly what this application proposes to do. The POCD also identifies target industries for economic expansion that include distribution and logistics. It's very consistent with the warehousing use proposed in this application. So in our view, between the land use map here and other policy statements in the plan, we think we have an application which is very consistent with land use and economic development goals in the plan of conservation and development. We asked a highly respected Connecticut consultant, Goldman and York, to study the fiscal and economic impacts of a project pursuant to this approval. Right now, we're handing out to you a 1-page summary of the work that Goldman and York did. And what they did, we asked them to look at the anticipated fiscal impact, including real and personal property taxes and developer fees. Now, the concept plan that we have applied for includes a building that will be 1.5 million square feet in size. Goldman and York modeled, they did a range of 1.3 million to 1.5 million square feet in size, just to give you a range that was a little more conservative than just the 1.5 million. The anticipated annual gross tax revenues are estimated to be between 3.3 million and $3.8 million per year. Goldman and York also looked at potential government service costs that might be created by the project. I think they used a very conservative number for this. They estimated the government service costs at 33% of the real estate tax portion of this. And yet, even taking such a large number out for government services costs, the annual net tax revenues are still $2.4 million to $2.7 million every year. In addition, there would be significant one-time development fees, new jobs, and the wealth creation that comes with these new jobs. When you consider that the town's current total budget for tax revenue is about $14.5 million, you can see that adding over $2 million in new net revenue could be a game changer for the town. This new tax revenue could be used to finance new needed public improvements, whether they be schools or other community facilities. And perhaps best of all, the location for this economic benefit is right next to I-84 and an interchange, less than half a mile to the ramps, which minimizes impacts to the town. So there's a huge benefit upside to a project located right next to the highway.
What about 54?
So,
Wait till public comment, please. Wait.
so with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Jeff Fitzgerald. He's going to take you through the conceptual site design, which we've called the conceptual master plan in our application.
Thanks, Tom. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Jeffrey Fitzgerald, professional engineer and certified planner with Bowler Engineering, office located at 65 LaSalle Road in West Hartford. As Tom said, I'm going to talk a bit about the orientation and the design of the conceptual site plan that we submitted, the utilities that we're going to need to design to support a building like this, our stormwater management approach that we'll take on a site like this and a project like this, and then to present some examples of comparable buildings that Hillwood has done in the area. And then I'll turn it over to Colleen to talk a bit about traffic. So as Tom said, this will orient you first with the site. Again, north is to the left of the page, and this is Interstate 84 running on the left side, and River Road on the bottom of the building. You're seeing an example here of 1.5 million square feet of industrial building placed on the site, and it's purely conceptual. And there's different configurations that buildings of this size can come in, and this is one example that we laid out. And when you lay out a building of this size on a site like this, and a building of this proposed use, One of the things that we consider here is recognize that this is not a truck stop. It's not a retail use. It does not need to be seen or be highly visible or have lit signs so that it's passerbys or potential businesses, potential customers will know where to go. It's intended to be a warehouse distribution facility, so people who go to it are people who work there and know that it's there and it's a destination for them. So it's unique in that way. So when we site the building here, we want to maintain the wooded buffer around, and this is, you see the brightly colored trees are the wooded buffer on the property, and then you'll see in the faded area to the left, there's a large wooded buffer that's maintained to the highway edge. And again, we show the driveway location here on the far south end of the site next to the fire facility. And again, that driveway is intended to, it's lengthened so that the change in grade can be made up in a very manageable slope. It's not steep, accommodates this, and then circulation on the site for trucks and employees is provided through, parking for trailers, 300 plus on this side, 200 plus on the north side, loading bays on both sides of the building, and then employee parking on both sides of the building where offices are. Again, the intent is that you experience very little of what happens up here from River Road as we maintain a large wooded buffer, and the site is, the developed portion of the site is screened by new landscaping as well. I'm going to talk a bit about the utilities we have to provide. As Tom indicated, there's water and sewer need to be developed on the site itself. I'm sorry, water and septic systems. So because of the size of this building, it will require a DEP permitted septic system, which will have an advanced wastewater treatment facility that provides disinfection and nitrogen removal in order to meet the DEP requirements. And that may be located in an area like this. We have to develop wells to serve the site, and that may be located here. The exact location of the wells and the septic leaching fields will depend on hydrologic studies and geologic studies that will be undertaken to determine the best locations for both well development and septic leaching fields that will again receive treated wastewater after going through an advanced wastewater treatment plant on the site. Propane tanks will be provided on site in multiple locations. A water storage tank for domestic, as well as a fire storage tank, will be located on the site in order to be able to provide the pressures required to have a facility that can be fully sprinklered for fire suppression. So this is again conceptual of how these utilities will be approached. And again, the exact locations of those will be presented to you when we come back for a special permit at that time with an actual the proposed building configuration. Stormwater management on a site like this needs to be long-term sustainable, needs to implement low-impact development techniques, and it purely by virtue of the size of the site and the amount of development you're doing, you need to put stormwater back into the ground at multiple places throughout the site in order to maintain the various watersheds that exist presently, because the site doesn't all drain to one place, it drains to several areas. So the way we do that is a couple of, the approach we take is multifaceted. You really need to detain stormwater. You need to infiltrate it, you need to treat it, and you need to let it get back into as a surface and groundwater into the aquifers that it presently serves. So we show a series of different stormwater management techniques here, including at the perimeters of these roads and driveways, some bioswales. We show underground stormwater chambers that provide detention. We show surface stormwater basins that have sediment forebays. And then we show the various bioswales along the driveway. And I'll show you a bit about how these infiltration swales can, how these infiltration swales work. It's a
Gotta stay quiet while the presentation's going on. Thank you. You have to. You have to.
There's, yep, moving along. This is an example here of the underground.
Wait a minute here. We haven't heard this presentation yet. This is the opening of a public hearing. None of us on the commission have heard it. How are we supposed to make a decision if we don't hear this? No, we have not. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a couple examples of these low impact development stormwater techniques I'm talking about, including these buffer strips and biofilter swales that will be located in between parking aisles and at the edges of the large parking basins, parking lots. We have underground stormwater chambers that can provide detention, and is essential in order to mimic the slow discharge of stormwater to the receiving waters during a storm event. And then we have a series of surface wet ponds that would have sediment forebays, again, to provide polishing of stormwater. And the exact locations of these will be done as part of the 100% design documents submitted for the special development, for the special permit. But there will be multiple locations of these throughout the site. And again, as the comparable building types that we talked about, this is a typical kind of a industrial warehouse building that Hillwood has put up. You see the presentation of the high quality building materials. I'm not an architect by any means, and there will be an architect who presents a building that's appropriate here. But again, this building is not intended to be a billboard for any kind of a business. It's intended to be an office and an industrial building that people come to and work, and that looks attractive when it's seen from River Road, but will have very little visual impact to the town. Now with that, I'll turn it over to Colleen to talk about the traffic.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Colleen Byrne. I'm with Solely Engineering. Office is located at 501 Main Street in Monroe, Connecticut. I am a road safety professional, level 2 in infrastructure, is certified by the Transportation Professional Certification Board. Also here with me tonight from my office is Luke Morrow, a licensed PE in the state of Connecticut and a professional traffic operations engineer, also certified by the Transportation Professional Certification Board. And as discussed, I'm here tonight to discuss the preliminary traffic assessment that was prepared by my office for the conceptual site plan that's been presented to you this evening. I think we're all familiar with the site, but we have Interstate 84 to the west of our site. Exit 70 is approximately a half a mile to the north of the proposed site access. We also have exit 69 at the bottom left of your screen and exit 71 at the top right of the screen. Now, as part of the preliminary traffic impact assessment for the conceptual plan, as discussed before, this plan is conceptual, but we wanted to put some numbers to the traffic generation that could be anticipated under the proposed development. So we have an industry standard manual that we use, trip generation manual, and that's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And that allows us some data points about other facilities that have been built and what they produce in terms of traffic generation. For a warehousing facility, we want to look at the square footage as an independent variable and see what potential traffic could be generated during the peak hours. And when we talk about peak hours, commonly referred to as rush hour or the commuting hours, it's typically your weekday AM between 7 and 9 AM and your weekday PM between 4 and 6 PM. So the 1 hour of the most intense traffic during those periods. And for this site, based on the 1.5 million square feet that's been presented to you tonight, we're expected to experience 200 new trips during each of those peak hours on any average weekday. So that is, and I just want to clarify, sometimes this gets misinterpreted, but that 200 trips includes entering trips and exiting trips, so both, as well as truck traffic and passenger vehicle traffic. So that's all encompassing entering and exiting truck traffic and passenger vehicle traffic. And what we want to do after we've established a number of trips that we think are going to be generated during that peak hour based on this conceptual plan, we want to think about where those trips are going to go. Where are they going to come from and go to when they access this site? So obviously we've discussed the proximity to exit 70 just to the north of our site. It's about a half a mile to the ramps there. And as Mr. Cody spoke about earlier, this is, in terms of vehicular traffic, this is an ideal location for a site, warehouse site like this. This is almost immediate access to the highway, which most trucks would utilize to get to and from the site, especially in terms of regional access, Boston, Worcester, Springfield to the north and east, Hartford, New Haven to the south and west. This is a great location for truck traffic. Now, passenger vehicle traffic, we would expect most of it to also utilize the interstate system via exit 70 to I-84 to the north. However, we would expect that some trips would also access the site via River Road north and south of the site. We talk about truck traffic. This is a logistics, warehousing operation, and everyone wants to be efficient, and logistics are well thought out. So, truck drivers aren't interested in taking back roads to go sit at a traffic signal or accelerate from a stop sign. It's not great for fuel efficiency. It's not good for their travel time. So, for those reasons, we expect that the trucks are going to come to and from the highway to access this site. Now, this is preliminary, this is conceptual. So, under a full site plan application, a special permit application, we would prepare a comprehensive detailed traffic impact study. So that's going to include everything from intersection operational analysis and as well as a safety analysis of this corridor, the I-84 ramps, the site driveway area. We're also going to look at, truck turning patterns. So what does a WV67 take to maneuver onto the 84 on ramps or off ramps, and again at the site driveway. That will all be evaluated as part of a comprehensive traffic impact study that would be submitted under any future applications. I'm going to go back to the site plan just to chat about the proposed site driveway. So on this conceptual plan, as was discussed earlier, the site driveway is fairly long and winding to get up to this internal intersection at the south end of the property. So that road measured from River Road up to that intersection just at the south side of the property is about 2,800 feet, or just over a half mile. And then from that point on up to the guardhouse, which is shown here at the rear of the property on the east of the property, southeast, that's another 1,000 feet of linear roadway distance. So from this guardhouse all the way down to River Road, we have about 3,800 feet of distance traversing this site. So right now we're showing the driveway at about 40 feet wide, which is, both of those, the length and the width are ample infrastructure to accommodate the truck traffic that we would expect to be utilizing this facility. And then one other item I wanted to discuss was Mr. Cody talked about earlier, but the traffic impact study that would be prepared under a full build, or I'm sorry, a special permit application would go to the DOT for review and analysis by their department, both in two departments actually, through the Office of the State Traffic Administration as an MTG certificate application, as well as through the district office through the encroachment permitting application. And DOT is going to review that traffic study. Ultimately, River Road is a state road under their jurisdiction, as is obviously Interstate 84. And any mitigation or impacts that are proposed under this project offsite would be reviewed by DOT and ultimately would be under their final say as to what improvements are required. And any improvements that are proposed would be within the existing available right-of-way and potentially along our own property frontage along River Road. But there would be no impact to any other property than what is available in the right-of-way and what's along our property frontage today. So I just wanted to reiterate that those are all things that would be covered under any future traffic impact study. The information we've given to you today is preliminary based on the conceptual layout that we've been presented, but there would be a much more detailed analysis that would be prepared under any future applications. So with that, I will pass it back to Mr. Cody to wrap up our presentation tonight. Let me just, sorry, Colleen Byrne for the record. I'm going to address this highway access figure that we prepared. I kind of described it earlier, but the proposed site driveway here is at the southwest side of the site along River Road. And this yellow arrow kind of shows the proposed path that the traffic would take to from the exit 70 ramps. So as you can see, as shown here, we're about 0.6 miles to the furthest ramps and 0.4 miles to the nearest ramps, but truck traffic and pedestrian, or excuse me, passenger vehicle traffic would ultimately access the site here and immediately traverse down River Road to access the interstate system about a half a mile north of the site. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so Tom Cody, again, for the record, to summarize the vision for the project and for the application, it's to become an economic development anchor for employment and growth. We think that based on the work that Goldman and York did, by the time this is fully built, it would be, if not the largest, one of the very largest taxpayers in town, and it would be in a location which would have far less impact on the community than if it were located elsewhere. Jeff Fitzgerald walked you through the conceptual master plan, and I think one point that I'd like to just make on that is that an application like this gives us the opportunity to present to you a master planned development. And instead of strip development, where you're getting multiple applications in series, each desiring their own access to public streets, each having to think about their own infrastructure, those impacts can add up. And your POCD talks about some of the problems of strip type development that occurs when you have a series of small projects trying to each do their own thing in close proximity to one another. This application, this site, this project gives you an opportunity to have a master plan development that has a master plan stormwater management system, a state-of-the-art sewage disposal system, as Jeff said, with nitrogen removal and other features which would not be included in individual small property type applications. So it is an opportunity for a master plan of development. So what are the next steps? First, of course, we certainly hope that the commission would approve this zone change. If it is approved, that would enable our team to continue to work on its comprehensive site investigations, the studies and the reports necessary to lead to full design and engineering of the project. We want this to be thorough, and we want to prepare for you an outstanding special permit and site plan application package. As we said earlier, more public hearings will be required. The public will have many more opportunities to review the details of the project and to provide comment to them, and for the commission to ask us questions. You may also decide during that review that you want peer reviews done by your own professional consultants to get an independent, unbiased third-party review of technical aspects of the application. We would welcome that review, and you may wish to do that. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be several state of Connecticut departments taking a deep dive into technical aspects of traffic, stormwater permitting, and on-site sewage disposal. I wanted to just conclude this last slide with just summarizing all of the different investigations, studies, and reports that will have to be completed before we get done with the special permit process. And this is a long list. We started making it, we realized we came up with 13 different items. There may be a few others too, but certainly there is a detailed geotechnical investigation on the site. We need to know soil types, bedrock locations, and other aspects that are revealed through geotechnical work. We will be doing a full lighting plan with photometric analysis of the lighting that's proposed. A sightline study. This would be where we actually take the building as designed and analyze the ability to see the building from different vantage points in the area. We literally, take lines, run that through, and try to model what that would look like. We will be doing an air quality study to understand potential air quality impacts. Colleen mentioned the traffic study. The preliminary part's done, but we have a whole detailed and comprehensive part still to come. We'll be doing a noise study. We've already done the beginnings of a fiscal impact study. We will have additional detail to provide for you as we would move into a special permit. Stormwater management report will not only be giving you a full stormwater management plan, we will have to do another stormwater management plan for the state of Connecticut before we can get a construction permit. We'll be doing a wetlands investigation, full delineation and investigation. If there are impacts from the project, those of course would be studied. If there are any vernal pools on the site, those would be studied and an assessment would be prepared. We'll be doing a technical analysis of subsurface sewage disposal. And then finally, a wildlife assessment. Here is where we would be reviewing natural diversity database records with DEEP, the NDDB review, and investigating whether there are any endangered, threatened, and special concern species on the site and what potential impacts there might be, and whether there needs to be any mitigation associated with all of that. I wanted to point out, we heard last week at the meeting, and I would say I noticed today posted to the application file on the website, I saw a couple of letters. I had a brief chance to review them. The vast majority of the issues that are being raised and have been asked, they are fair questions from the public, but not for this stage. This stage is the 30% master plan, conceptual plan step. We know what we have to do at the next step, and that is to answer many of the questions that have been asked and that you'll probably hear this evening. So I don't want to suggest that we don't understand those, we do. But many of those questions are appropriate for the next step, which is the special permit step. And as you can see from the studies that we're working on, we have a lot of work that we'll be doing to address those. So with that, I'd like to conclude our presentation. Thank you for your attention, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
I want to keep the screen running with the presentation for now. See how this works. That might be running back and forth.
So the next step, the commission's going to ask some questions. One thing I'm going to ask the commission, let's be relatively brief with our questions tonight because this public hearing is going to be continued anyway. I want to get the public, get some of their questions and comments and get to them tonight. So that being said, I have a couple of questions to kick off. How long ago did your company approach the town concerning the project?
I believe that was approximately 1 year.
So quite some time before we put the SDZ in place. And another.
Speed of place is correct. It's closer to 6 months.
6 months?
Yes.
Okay. I believe that SDZ was approved, what, April 5th. All right. Another question, and I know that I heard apology for this before, but a lot of us saw like disturbing stuff go up on local social media sites. For instance, why did your company send an associate out? This particular person went to people's houses, somehow figured out where they lived, showed up at their places of residence. Can you imagine if they showed up at like one of the commissioners' houses or something? Somebody going to be voting on this? It's bad enough with anybody's house. So what was the thinking behind that whole approach? I know it went wrong, but what was the thinking to do this, to send somebody out there to do this?
Hillwood did not ask for or authorize what happened. That's the problem, is that what happened was unauthorized.
You got to speak here. Here, speak into
Grab
this.
the mic.
Yeah, this is a nuisance having to go back and forth, but we're going to have to do it. Yeah.
That's fine.
See if I can put this here. It's best we can do.
What happened, Hillwood did not authorize it. It wasn't their idea. And they didn't ask for that to be done. So again, we apologize for this, but what they did was unauthorized. They didn't ask to share the strategy. They didn't ask for the ideas. They just went and did it. And we heard about it after the fact. And so we're sorry that it happened, but they were terminated.
Wait, you'll get your chance to ask questions. You have to wait. That's the way it works. There's a process here. You ruin it, nothing happens. It's that simple. You'll get your chance. You will all get your chance to talk. I will make sure of it. You'll have all the time you need. I can hear you.
Walter, can I ask a follow-up?
Go ahead.
How can you assure us if you didn't authorize what happened before? And for clarification, Mr. Frederick spoke to outreach. What happened was an individual from your PR firm went to the homes of people who had spoke out negatively about this proposed project on social media. So I don't think of that as outreach. They sought out individuals and went to their homes. How can we be assured, and how can our residents be reassured that your new PR firm or your firm will not employ that tactic in the future?
Well, first, again, the tactics that were used by the previous firm were not known to Hillwood and were not authorized. They were fired, and Corsi and Company has been hired. The reason that we have hired Corsi and Company is we want to promote the flow of information. We don't want to be in a situation where we don't have a mechanism to communicate with the public. And we need the professional assistance of a public relations and community relations firm to do that. And that's why we've hired Chuck Corsi, well-known, high integrity. He is going to help us with that communication so that we can communicate to the commission and the commission here and the public as much as we can. All I can say is that on behalf of everyone on this team, we will do everything we can to never have that happen again. All right.
All right, well, I think I have many questions, but I'm not going to get into them all tonight because I want to give other people a chance to talk. Anything else from the commission before we move on to the public?
Yeah, move on to the public.
All right. All right, so we're going to open this up to the public. Is the process, you're going to have a list here, Mike, and we're going to start on that? All right. Yeah, those got to go up there. Christopher, you got it?
Yep. So I just want to clarify for those on Zoom, we're going to start with people in the room and then we'll go to those that are remote. So we're just going to work through the sign-in sheet and then we'll go to those on the call, but we'll get to everybody. All right. All right, first person on the list, Joan Paraskowitz.
I can't read it with my trousers trying to write. I actually have more questions than comments here. My first question is, I'm not sure I really understand this special designation zoning. There are some stipulations on it that have to be met to be true for a firm to use this. If you put it on.
You got to say your full name and.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Joanne Taraskowitz and I live at 15 Liska Road. Okay, and, but anyways, I'm not sure if we put this designation on, does it have to go to the entire parcel? Do you necessarily want to have the entire parcel be special zoning for industry? That's the first question I have. The second one is, I'm just wondering if this special zoning is not a good idea overall, that maybe it's something that has to be rethought before we use it. The second question I have on this is I'm not sure who is actually building the building. Who's the boots on the ground? Is it the hill? I want to say hilltop. That's not right. Okay, anyway, it's Hillwood Industrial. I'm sorry, or is it going to be the New Haven group? Who's the boots on the ground when it comes to putting up the building?
Do you want to answer that?
Who's going to be, who are we going to deal with one-on-one? You.
Yes, ma'am. Again, I represent Hillwood. We are the developer. We are in a joint venture with the New Haven Group.
So it's, when we see the trucks, they're going to say New Haven Group on them. Or are they going to say Hilltop on them?
We are the developer. We
You're
have,
fogging me.
excuse me?
You're fogging me.
Okay,
Who's going to be the boots on the ground?
This isn't the way this works.
No, I want- It's very important because I looked
You
up
gotta direct your
the,
questions and I'll direct them to
excuse me?
We can't do this.
I
This is
looked up
way
the New
most
Haven
works.
group. And they have examples of their sites of buildings they've built. And they have this projected project there. Very nice looking buildings. but the biggest one they have built is about 11.6% the size of what they want to build. So you take this beautiful big building, cut it into 8 sections like a cake, and one of those sections is their experience. So I have big issues over the experience. That really raises a question for me on there. The other thing is we're going into recession. And I have a question about starting such a big project. If we go into this recession, it wouldn't be the first time a project gets abandoned in the middle. And that's the issue, okay? Yeah. Is Donald Perizek here? Is Donald Perizek here? Okay, no, just a minute, just a minute. I will quote from his thing then. I have a geology degree, so I'm a geologist, and I can read his letter that he sent to you, and you have all read, I assume. Okay, and when he talks about the geology of the bedrock soils and the fact that actually it's a micaceous schist that's up there, which is a very friable rock, he's talking about the amount of blasting and the amount of fill that has to be brought in. So that's why he's more of an expert on soils than I am. I'm mostly into structural geology. So he's talking about the hydrology here. Also, it seems that this new designation means that you have to use low impact development techniques. Blasting, I can't see that as low impact. You have to use the existing topography and vegetation when it has to be preserved when necessary or possible. That I question too. And when you see switchbacks on a road, you're looking at steepness. Trucks shifting going up, trucks shifting to going down. So this worries me why the road isn't at the other end of the property where it would go right in. You know, they just have to kind of flip flop, I guess. Okay, and because of the geology, the fact is very thin soils and a lot of bedrock up there, I question the ability to form a decent wells to provide this much water. We don't have any gravel beds up there on the hilltops in this part of the state. Okay, and I question the ability to be able to get rid of wastewater without creating a lot of acidity problems, et cetera. There's some real geologic issues. So I have my questions about this. The last thing I'll tell you is I want you to think about New London. New London got talked into building that Pfizer building because Pfizer got the board and gave them the song and dance, and they went with it. They raised how much New London? They took how much land by eminent domain? They created all these problems, and Pfizer put up this huge building, and then they left it after 2 years. They never finished the promised development project. The book you want to read on it is called The Pink House, okay? And it's Jeff, got to think of his last name, that wrote it, okay? And it's worth reading before we get sold something that we're not sure we really want to do. Okay, so we have to step back and really think.
Did you know?
Why don't you have a seat? We're just gonna let everybody make their comments and everything. It's gonna not flow very well otherwise. Thank you, Joan. Next up is Herbert E. Klein. Want to state your name and address for the record?
My name is Herbert E. Cly. I'm on Turnpike Road in Willington. There are actually 2 comments I would like to make. One is that we as a town are very fortunate to have these interchanges in our town. There are many towns in Connecticut that would look at us with envy and would love to have at least one of them on a north-south interchange go through their town. And here we have 2 of them. So I think rather than be extremely critical on ourselves, we should be a little bit thankful at what we have here. The second item that I would like to bring up, and the gentleman addressed it to us, is that there has to be something in this basis for the town of Willington. We have an aging population in our town. When I was, well, we had 5 kids in the whole thing, and there was about 500 then in the school system. And now I think it's down around 300. But anyways, we have an aging population that's going to be have to pay a lot of taxes. And so I looked at what's this for our town. I heard here that it would be worth anywhere around $2.5 million. That's a number that I got on the back of an envelope when I came in the room. And I would like to state that I think I would sooner have this development than about 30 or 40 houses up there, which then would come to the town and demand services, which I would then have to pay for. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Next person on the list, Kathy Lessing.
Kathleen Blessing, 67 St. Moritz Circle, 38-year resident. Hi. I don't envy your jobs. I've been on that side of the table, and the decision you guys have to make is going to be really difficult. I just want to say that the package that these guys presented with a nice big bow on it that they were promoting and giving us all the pluses that they thought were going to be helpful to the town, I think is going to be really detrimental. I think this project is going to be really detrimental to the town. And I just urge you guys to oppose the zone change. And that's my say.
Thank you. All right, next, Paul Carbonneau.
Good evening. Paul Carbonneau, 430 River Road, a butter to the project in question. I've gone over a lot of the documents that have been put forth, different things from the town and from the nice presenters. A lot of what is put in here is good. I like it. Some of the stuff, let's see, what page was that on? Sorry, I just have to find it. The permitted uses. There's restaurants, distilleries, retail establishments, warehouse facilities and such. I noticed under retail establishments, you had it as a 30,000 square foot limit. I like that. We're a small town. That seems like a small town kind of size. I'm guessing that's about the size of what the Dollar General is. I did a little research. Walmart in Wyndham is 90,000 square feet. Tolland Big Y is 60,000 square feet. So you guys are already saying small. We're small. Your map shows the east side of River Road as potential. This spot all the way down to 74. That is an area, there's very few residences in there. Very few people will be impacted. I am one of those people that will be impacted. There's other things in here listed on page 2, part B. For parcels located within the DC DI zones, the minimum parcel size is, not located in DC or DI zones, the minimum parcel size shall be 5 acres. I'm at 2 acres. So this is detrimental to me. There's, I believe, 2 other parcels along this area that are residential who are also under 5 acres. So if we wanted to sell out because some giant corporation went in next to us, it'd be difficult to sell due to the limits. I'm sure this could be some sort of an exception they'd apply and you do some sort of work with that. The tax they're talking about is quite impressive. It seems like a home run. One big shot fixes all our problems. But the zone you laid out has many parcels. And if we went about it in a smaller way, we could make that tax income, not in one fell swoop, but with hard work, piece by piece. Our friends and neighbors could benefit from this. This is just a giant. It's cutting down half that forest. They're talking about sight lines. When you come down 84, right now, all you see is forest. In the autumn, it's ablaze with color. That won't happen anymore. You're gonna see this giant, stick it up in the air. That's all you're gonna see. I'm gonna stick mostly to the zoning or the zone change. So I like this, but I don't like their package. So I'd have to say, I don't want the zone change. If the zone does change, I will be at future meetings. I don't like their plan. I don't like where they're putting their driveway at the moment, which is, I'd say about 100 feet from my bedroom windows and 75 feet from my well. They picked the steepest portion, other than right next to the mobile, the steepest portion to start their entrance. So I don't know anybody, how many people are familiar with the tractor trailers, but they're coming from a stop and you're trying to gain altitude. That's a lot of RPMs. That's a lot of noise. So, but like I said, I'll wait till other meetings. If it comes to that, I'm hoping that we just say no to this project. Like I said, I think a smaller approach would be better for our small town. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Is this better? Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Mary Newman, 7 Y Road. And I found the presentation really slick, really put together, but they lost me when they described Willington as a key industrial market. A lot of interesting ideas about the proximity to 84, but we know those products aren't just going to Boston and New York. And we know 84 isn't the best route to New London or Rhode Island. And as far as waiting for the state to review the plan, I have big concerns when we talk about 32 and 74 and frontage and right-of-way. What does that mean to all those homes along those roads, as well as the number of trucks going by and cars? 2,400 a day, 240 an hour. Yes, they're talking about peak times, but is that place only going to be open 8 hours a day and only during peak time? I doubt it. Thank you.
All right, I'm not quite sure about this next one, but I'm gonna give it a try. Eileen Gavins, is that right?
Hi, I'm Eileen Devens, and I've lived here for 30 years, and I love this area. It's the last green belt.
State your address.
My name is Eileen Devens. I live on 63 Schofield Road, Unit 60, Willington, Connecticut. Hopefully they don't have guys still coming around. I mean, this sounds like a Stephen King novel. Anyway, I just wanted to say, I don't have a real lot to say. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not, as advanced as all you people are, but I love this area. It's a beautiful area in the fall, coming over from Rockville. You see all the foliage. You guys put in Loves, you put in the other place across the way. And just with the other place across the way, I travel over to Ashford and everything, and they have pee bottles. The truckers pee in bottles and leave them all over the place. And it's a mess. So, and I see all the traffic just in the years I ride a motorcycle, just in the years I've been here, and the accidents from that. So you're just gonna open up Loves now. You got a tax base there. There has to be other ways to keep this area as beautiful as it is. So that's just all I have to say. Thank you.
Alyssa Miller.
Melissa Miller. I live at 55 Mahaliac Road in Willington. I'm not a great public speaker, so I kind of put together some thoughts. I just want to thank the commission for an opportunity to speak. Thank them for their introduction to their project. Knowing that you guys didn't get a chance, we saw a lot of this online. We got to do a little research where you were hearing this for the first time, and I do completely understand that. But I thank you very much. I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to read what I have to say because I don't want to forget my thoughts. I understand that we are facing many economic challenges in this town, and we need economic development and growth, as every town does. My understanding is that this population has decreased in our town approximately 8%. Has anyone asked why people are moving? Are they moving to other towns with better services that are more quiet? Are they just completely moving out of the state because it's too expensive to live in Connecticut? I am against the changing of these regulations and zoning for this particular property. It is a monstrous logistics center. There are many concerns I have, especially traffic and safety of those in this town and the surrounding towns. The main roads surrounding 84 are 32, 44, 74, 320, and 195. These roads are all two-lane roads, narrow, curvy, many hidden driveways, all of which are not designed to handle 2,400 semi-trucks, vans, and cars going in and out of the center every single day. If you think for a second, a trucker intending to go to Norwich is going to drive all the way back on 84 to Route 2 just to get there, it's kind of a dreamland. If there is an accident on 84, these vehicles will be using all of these roads to get to their destination. If anyone in these towns have an emergency, that is additional traffic and congestion that could have dire consequences to those in our town. The noise pollution and the air quality will suffer as well with all of this traffic. The consequence to wildlife is that it will be pushed into more populated areas. As some of you know, I live right up the road from the new Love's Trucks location. I have noticed a large increase of wildlife in my backyard, not limited to mice, squirrels, chipmunks, deer, bear, fisher cats, woodchucks, and coyote. Should progress be at the expense of our wildlife? What about this steep landscape? What about the impact of water runoff? What will that be? We saw what happened with a huge rainstorm that we had last year, what it did to some of our roads that were steep in this town, and at what cost to the town of Willington. According to Willington's website, we are considered a small rural town, predominantly residential, with a shopping center and a small couple of businesses, and now 2 truck stops. According to the EAP, a new business should improve the overall quality of life of existing and future residents and workers and visitors. If we want to continue our small town feel, this monstrosity will change this. Our population is about 6,000 people. When looking to keep residents and have growth, a town needs to make investments to bring growth population and it to be economically stable. Job creation should have a local community in mind. What type of businesses would benefit the community that are most being better off for a better quality of life, better services, and less vehicle pollution? Our world is changing, and the way we live, the way we work, the way we do business. But this type of business is going to destroy much of our natural beauty of our town. This will push more residents that choose to live in a rural town to move away. I think this town should be seeking out what residents think would be good for our community, talk to our local business owners to see what the positive sides are to having a business in a small town and what the challenges are of running that business. We should be investing in reliable high-speed internet for those in this area. It is a big complaint I see all over social media that the internet is not reliable, and there are areas that have no access at all except for a very expensive satellite. Many people are no longer working in an office but working remotely. Small business owners tend to live in towns, and they settle in those towns because they want to make investments in their home and raise their family. Large-scale businesses like this are just investors, and large corporations are looking to make huge profits and do not care who they affect or what environment is destroyed. These businesses often get large tax breaks even though they build jobs. What kind of tax breaks will they be getting? Will the tax dollars benefit our town right away, or will they get a deferment for many years? We have no public transportation. So what is the point of creating hundreds of jobs in a local area to people who don't have vehicles, or we don't even have the population to fill those positions? Currently, many businesses in our town are struggling to get positions filled, even here. We need to continue to make investments in our open spaces, making it safe and family-friendly to draw people to our town, not just business. I have to give kudos to the Girl Scouts who invested in a pollinator garden. That is what small town investment encourages: good, healthy environment. In closing, I think a project like this is too massive for town, and zoning should not allow this change to go forward, at least for this project. Sadly, I know I always hear that it's tax money, but remember, once we destroy our natural landscapes, we can never go back to what was once was. This will no longer be a small town. I just want to let you know, I made a copy for the commission. I also put a website of the EPA that I did quote. It's great information directly coming from our federal government with the EPA about what small towns are and how to make community investment. Thank you so much for your time.
Eugene DeMayo.
Hi, Eugene DeMayo, 51 Schofield Road. I've lived in Willington for 36 years. I want to thank the board for volunteering their time, for all the work you do. I want to thank all the residents that came out to sweat it out in the gym. I don't want to see Willington become the truck capital of Connecticut. 2,400 vehicles getting off exit 70, assuming they all get off exit 70. What's it going to do to the property value of the towns, of the houses in the Village Hill, Schofield Road area, all the houses, and the ability to sell your house if you decide to move? If someone coming to look at your house can't even get off the exit ramp to look at your house. I'm opposed to this bill. I urge the board to vote no on the zone change. Thank you.
David Travanic.
David Kravanek, 22 Willington Hill Road. For you people that don't know Willington Hill Road, it's also Route 320, the roller coaster. I've been in this town, well, I'm third generation, along with Andy and other people in the audience. I am in favor of this because if you look at it in a perfect world, you could take that 160 acres with a 2-acre minimum building lot in Willington. You could end up with 80 houses up there, which would put more burden on the town for schools, public works, and everything else that goes along with it. This is just a preliminary hearing. I have no problems with it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Gary Donaldson.
Carrie Donaldson, 142 Talon Turnpike, also called 74, which I noticed was not included in the traffic assessment, though I feel should have been. I have only a few questions that I think are pertinent right now. The first one is I'm wondering if the committee has looked at other warehouses of a similar size. I have. A 1.5 million square foot warehouse puts us in the top 15 of all warehouses in the country. That's how big it is. It is well within the top 15, the top 12, the top 10. It is a giant facility. Maybe a town of 6,000 people lacks the infrastructure for such a building. Where does the water come from? Where does the fire coverage come from? Can our power grid handle such a building? Can our roads handle so much traffic? My next question is, why are we being punished for containing our rural character. As I understand it from the previous meeting at the Packing House, we are one of 6 sites that were suitable in the whole state. Why is it that because we've kept what we wanted, i.e. a rural, quiet community, we're now being preyed upon by corporations that want to move in and create giant buildings? The last one is nothing. That's my last one. The other ones are not important right now. All I want to say is I've been here not very long. I'm a parvenu, but I love this town. Like I said, I live on 74. I have a business on 74. I know that already the traffic is increased from the last 7 years. I can't imagine what's going to happen if we have a warehouse that comes in that rivals in terms of size and traffic any other warehouse here in the country. Thank you.
M. Pelletier.
Hey, I'm Matt Pelletier, 227 River Road. I want to thank the board for letting me brush up my public speaking skills here. I was like, I'm opposed to this. And a lot of our residents here come from wide and far. I'm 3rd generation living here, almost on accident. A lot of people here move from a busy, bustling place to a quiet place. My in-laws, Mary Newman, lived across the river. They moved here because they wanted a peaceful place. Some of us in our community moved here from, again, busy places. Some of us have been to war. Some of us have been all over the world. This is home. That's what it is. It's not a place to live. It's not just a place for people to build a warehouse. I don't fault them. They have a job to do. But this is our community. It's not theirs. That's first and foremost. The impact to our community is already, can you already tell here within a 40-minute drive. Go to Bloomfield, Simsbury, the difference between those 2 towns, they abut each other. Manchester and Glastonbury, it's right next door to each other. And even closer to home, Ellington and Vernon. Those 2 are right next door. As a gentleman who previously said on River Road, I agree with him that we should have a small calculated approach. Why? Still makes it a home, not just a place to live. So I ask you guys here, don't make Willington a place to live, keep it a home. Thank you.
E. Charette.
Hi, my name is Ken Paul. Emily stepped up. She accidentally signed us up, thinking it was just a sign-in sheet, so I was not prepared to speak today. But I am here to support the opposition to this. We've lived here about 2 years, and that's it. Thank you.
Kate Paul. Oh, okay, that was, all right, all right. Patricia Barclay.
So I don't think I have a whole lot more to add to what everybody else is saying. My husband and I just moved to My husband and I just moved to Willington 2 years ago. When we started looking for a home, I work in Hartford. I have a 25-mile commute. My husband works in East Granby, 35-mile commute. When we started looking for property, we had specific concepts of what we wanted. To me, that's Willington. It's as it is right now. It's a beautiful town. It is not Manchester. It is not Vernon. I want my home. I come home from work. I even bought my property. I bought a race ranch. I'm not a fan of race ranches, but I didn't buy it because it was a race ranch. I totally bought this house because of where it is located. I come home from work. I have deer in my backyard. I have a set of 14 turkeys that come in my yard every day. I live at 133 Village. This is going to be a huge detriment to my road. And there's no question it is going to affect the wildlife. I don't care what type of study someone tells me, it will affect it. Thank you.
Thomas L. Fox.
Good evening. I'm Tom Fox. I live at 39 Eldridge Mills Road in Willington here. And I live just about 200 yards, let's see, southeast of the site. Becker is one of my abutting properties, Becker Scenic Gravel Pit. And Mr. Perizik's property is the only property between me and this new proposed site. What I'm concerned about is I'm upslope from this particular site. I have a 412-foot drilled well, and I'm very concerned about where my aquifer, the aquifer that I draw from, being drained downhill into this particular warehouse. I'd like to know how many gallons of water this site is going to take. I don't want to live in an area where I have to worry about water conservation, where I have to worry about my well going dry. You know, the gentleman said he knows Ross Perot. Well, I remember Ross Perot's said at one point he heard a huge sucking sound, and that huge sucking sound is going to be our jobs going over to China. Well, that came true. I don't want to hear a huge sucking sound as my well goes dry. Okay. Some other things I'm concerned about is, in addition to the water table and the aquifer, I'm concerned about the area as far as the whole sky being lit up at night. I mean, I don't want it to be like a situation where I think a whole fleet of UFOs are landing behind my house. The other thing too is, as far as traffic, as it is right now, I got to listen to every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, I got to listen to the Stafford Motor Speedway booming every night. You know, over rumble, rumble, rumble. With these trucks coming in time and time again, 24 hours a day, with their brakes, their air brakes blasting and their motors revving to get up the steep topography. I'm very concerned about that too. Also in regard to, I'd like to, I guess you're going to do, there's going to be an environmental study in that. I know in particular, I do some gardening and farming out behind my property. I know for a fact that there's a family of barred owls that nest out behind there in that particular area. I hazard to guess that their territory and their home will probably be destroyed. Certainly their hunting area will be, I guess, interrupted in that. I just wanted to say too, I'm really disappointed to hear that this company too has been involved with doxing some of my fellow neighbors in that. That's a, you know, I think that's pretty despicable in that, going after people and not allowing them to have free speech and being attacked for their free speech on social media. And that's about it. That's all I have to say at this point.
Nicholas Tella.
Hi, Nicholas Tella, 49 Myrtle. Some things I wrote down here. So these guys here sitting behind us and give their presentation, they're professionals. They know what they're doing. They know how to win you guys over, persuade boards and such. Sure, $2 million that's nice. The jobs that may come, I've heard 500. You got FedEx already struggling, $25 an hour, $500 bonuses, education. They still can't even get people in there. You got Plainfield already pretty much approved their 1 million square foot warehouse going in. So we're going to be competing with them for jobs on top of already struggling. So left-hand turn going into this complex on a 2-lane road makes no sense. And then you're going to have another left-hand turn going south with, I don't know, I've heard 2,400 trips and such. I want to point out that I've seen 30,000 gallons of water used daily on some reports floating out there that these guys are going to be using. We have trucks on 32 already, especially when you're going down to the dump. Roads get narrow, hilly. You're already avoiding some of the, or trying to avoid some of these truck drivers just because the roads are narrow. These guys are going to get lost. They're not going to always end up on the highway, even though they should. So there's that. And then something else here I wrote. Regarding the distribution center, there's much to be said, and there's overwhelming evidence that this does not belong in Willington. I was just speaking to people in Casa Grande, Arizona. Probably said that wrong, but they're home to the 8th largest warehouse in North America, 12th largest in the world, according to some sites that I've seen. That being a Walmart distribution center. That building would be the same size, 1.5 million. Same thing out there in Arizona. Reach out to them. See the city officials and newspaper reporters that I talked to out there. Asked them about the traffic, and they've seen a large uptick in the trucks. Understandable. And they find these trucks sometimes going to different parts of the city that they shouldn't be going. You know, they got their route on off highway. They still end up drifting to the other side of the city, they were saying. And that's in a city that's 65,000 people. I mean, from what I heard, that city was accepting of it, but it's a city. It's not 6,000 people in a rural setting. Also stating, you know, there's very flat land out there. It doesn't snow, which we know that's not the layout and situation here. I'd like to reference page 4 of the EDC development guide, which states we have unmet demand in building materials, garden equipment supply, health and wellness and personal care, and food and beverage stores in the town. You don't hear that we're needing warehouses of 1.5 million square feet. You hear some people speak on the technicalities of why they should not be built, and you will see the letters sent in, which some of the letters that I've seen written by James Marshall, Don Perzak, Kathleen Demers, to name a few, have done a great job explaining why this is not a good fit for from a more technical standpoint. That's all I have. Thank you.
Bill Rankin. Okay. Terry Bagley.
Hello, neighbors. My name is Carrie Bagley. I live at 97 Spack Road. I have been a resident of Willington for not that long because I just moved here and built this house. Thought this is going to be a different setup, so I'm going to jump around a little bit, but a few main points. I'm not sure if anybody, I know people in our town, I know there's a lot of Facebook groups, I know a lot of things going on. I'm not sure if anybody on your committee has really looked into some of the issues surrounding changing the zoning for warehouses like this that are being built in other towns, specifically South Windsor, that nice giant vacant for sale warehouse that's there. Because a lot of things that this development group is promising is exactly what they are not following through with in other locations. So to name a few that were mentioned in this recently published article, warehouses like this in residential areas are creating a lot of issues, and these are just a quarter of the size of the one that is proposed here. There are increased taxes for the town, which is a great thing that we're seeing. But let's talk about the tax abatements that will actually happen instead of the increased taxes for the town. This is not a manufacturer where they will be long-term, where we will be benefiting from that constant income and constant product being made. This is a warehouse. So let's look at that Windsor Amazon facility that promised so much for taxes for the town, yet they just got an $8.8 million abatement approved. The friendly relationship with developers, hey, we want to be your friend, we want to work with you, we are here for you. Of course they're going to say this. I'm pretty sure also Ted Bundy had a very friendly demeanor when he lured women into his VW Beetle to murder them. Noise pollution measures and traffic restrictions, quoted from the article, are ineffective and unenforceable. Continuing on to say that the noise is a really, really significant issue, and it is impossible to control with regulation right now. I'm not sure how our town, that doesn't even have a police department, can grapple with these issues. Increased jobs. That is the big thing that they are promising, and it costs a lot to live in Willington. Pay for most warehouse jobs does not support what the cost of living is in this town with our high taxes. It's actually cheaper to live in Glastonbury, where they have numerous facilities, programs, parks, restaurants, after-school programs, and more. It's also very good to note here that according to studies by a consulting firm, McKinsey, most warehouses will be automated by 2030. There goes that for potential jobs. Furthermore, in case you have not looked at the annual warehouse turnover rates, they are a whopping 43%. The national average turnover rate in jobs is between 12 and 15% annually. This comes directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in February this year. So if there are 500 employees on site, they will lose and need to rehire around 200 a year, which is almost what we lost between the 2010 and 2020 census in this town. And I really can't see how that is very sustainable. Looking at the demographics in our town, somebody had noted on the population decrease, it went down about 9% between 2010 and 2020. Small population like this, we are now under 6,000. And April 2020 to April 2021, we dropped another 0.2%. 13% of the population is under the age of 18, which is lower than the national average of 22%. 17.5% of the population is over 65, which is higher than the national average of 16.8%. While it is thought that this would bring people to the town, the reality is that it will bring people into town for work, and then they will go back to where they came from because our town is an expensive place to live and doesn't really have a lot of things that bring people to it. I moved to this town because it is a beautiful town, it is quiet, and there aren't a lot of people. I really love that. Unfortunately, with this, a lot of that will go away. There's going to be constant traffic. There's going to be all of the issues that I dealt with when I lived in Glastonbury and Windsor and Manchester and all of the other areas where they had bustling businesses, constant traffic, constant people going back and forth. And I am all about bringing industry to this town. We need it, but industry that supports growth, community, not an eyesore of a warehouse that is half a mile long that will, despite what they're saying, be very visible, not only from the highway, but from the hills, from all around, and especially when the lights are out. We need more open and public spaces, not just one park next to a park and ride that would, should this zone change happen and this facility move in, be surrounded by constant traffic from people going from to and from work and countless, about 1,800 tractor trailers. That car traffic equals almost double the entire household count in the town of Willington, and that's pretty significant. This would be coming from a small size warehouse, and based on the fact that this would be in the, or around the 15th largest warehouse of its kind in the entire country, this would be more of a high volume cross-dock facility. So that number will more than likely be higher. This town needs to be made desirable. And to do that, we need services, we need public spaces, access to good jobs without high turnover rates. And we need something that is safe, accommodating, and welcome for all. I do not support this.
Call on one more tonight for continuing the public hearing. It's going to be Jim Bueller. August 16th. After the public hearing is closed, we have a lot of people that are going to want to speak from the sheets I have in front of me. We're going to make sure you're all heard. Yeah.
Everybody hear me okay? Jim Bulick, Laurel Drive. I'm actually speaking against this development right here, this zone change. I grew up not in Willington. I have family in Willington, moved away to Boston area, Worcester. But I came back here 22 years ago, and my wife and I came back here because we liked the rural nature of Willington. We liked being able to hop on the highway and easily go, you know, to Boston or go to New York or any place else. I like coming down the hill after a hard day at work and seeing the little green valleys that you see as you're coming down from Tallinn, or the color, if you will, in the fall. I appreciate that. I appreciate the plan of conservation and development that prizes the rural nature that we have of Willington. So I'm against changing that. Not all business is good business for Willington. You wouldn't want a nuclear power plant to come into Willington. You wouldn't want windmills on our tops of our hills and things like that. You wouldn't. There's a lot of businesses that don't make sense, at least not that size and scope of things. I think your plan of conservation and development does not stipulate maximum sizes. I think it doesn't talk about maximum heights of things. I think there's even, you know, there's many other parcels in Willington, or there are other parcels in Willington for sale where this question will come up again and again. So I urge you to take a look at your plan of conservation and development and make sure it addresses the planning part. What do you want to see in your town? Lots of small little businesses like a Glastonbury or a Simsbury that we've talked about before, or you're going to get all clustered in like a Manchester. So anyways, I'm not going to go on any further. I'm against it. Thank you very much. One final point. I'm speaking as a citizen, not as a member of any particular board I'm a member of. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to keep this list with people's names on it for the next meeting. I have to pick up where we left off.
They're going to get a chance too, but we're, you know, the people in the room we were going to call on first. That was the plan. And then we're going to pick up the people online. So the meeting will undoubtedly be here the next time. Go ahead again. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't hear that. Go ahead. We're going to pick up remote people as well. We're going to somehow get to everyone. There's a lot of people here. The technology is doesn't make this the easiest thing to do, but I want to make sure we hear everyone that wants to speak. So that being said, the public hearing PZ-22-10 is going to be continued to August 16th. So we'll go. Want to make a motion? You don't have it. Yeah, the meeting is not adjourned. Yeah. If anybody wants to stay for the rest of the meeting, it's not over yet, just the public hearing. I didn't see it. I didn't see it in front of me. If anyone wants to stay for the rest of our exciting meeting here, they can. It's just the public hearing has been continued. There'll be Erica. It's going to be just a handful of people stay.
Why don't we take like a 2-minute recess?
All right, let's pick it up at like 10 of. I can see that.
I want to announce it. Just do a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, we're going to do a 5-minute recess just to stretch our legs a little bit, and then we're going to pick up with the regular meeting. All right, we're live again. Let's see, no new business tonight, so nothing under item E. Item F, unfinished business. PZ-22-9, text amendment application pertaining to the regulation of cannabis. Applicant Planning and Zoning Commission, action possible but not required tonight.
Okay. Public hearing's closed, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not closed, it's continued. Oh, no.
Yeah, cannabis. Public hearing. No new evidence, nobody else.
I'm just going to stand here so that I don't have to pass it back and forth. So at the last meeting, the commission had a couple of questions. There were some concerns brought up related to separating distances, also proximity of retail establishments to the highway. And we had some comments as part of the public hearing. One of the things that we also discussed was basically that a denial of the regulations to allow cannabis establishments does not mean they're prohibited. So if the commission were to deny the reg as currently written, we would be back where we are now, which is, I'm standing in front of the mic here, to not have any regulations. So following the PZC meeting, I drafted a regulation essentially just to prohibit cannabis establishments, both retail and cultivation of all kinds, which you have a copy of, and we have hard copies here I can hand out. Sent that to CROG so we can schedule that public hearing if you choose for August. Yep. Let me pass those down. So there's the prohibition, and then this is the other one. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I just want to point out. I did tweak the regulations to allow for it. The one thing that I do want to remind you is that without regulations in place, if an application were to be received, it would have to be treated as a similar use now. So it's not like a traditional use where if we don't have reg sport, we have to prohibit it. So one of the things that I added, which you'll see in red for cannabis retail and hybrid retail, is that there's a separating distance of 1,000 feet from any state or local roadway with an average daily traffic count in excess of 20,000. This is purely for the purposes of making this so that they can't locate in proximity to the highway. If there was concerns related to people coming on the highway, off the highway, jumping off, going to this establishment and leaving again, that would be a language you could adopt to take care of that. The other thing that I did, and I can jump over and kind of show you on the screen here, is we've created 2 sample buffer maps. Plainly, if you want or have an opinion on having these uses in certain areas, based upon the proximity of other uses, in example, schools or childcare facilities, et cetera, the separating distances will be restrictive to the point where they can't locate there. So if we were to increase the separating distances that are currently in the regulations, so you'll see we have 1,000 feet for some, located within 1,000 feet of another cannabis establishment and 500 feet with any child daycare facility, church, et cetera. If those get pumped up, essentially areas right over here where Dunkin' Donuts, Dollar General, Phelps Plaza are out because there's one of those facilities there. So as you weigh your comfort level with those distances, just bear in mind that if that number gets increased, it's effectively a prohibition from that area of town. So I'm going to drop this mic and I'm going to show you the 2 maps and then we can go from there. So the first map I'll show you is one that we created to show a buffer distance of 1,000 feet from the, let me share my screen. So this is the Willington, obviously parcel map. This area in blue here is approximately a 1,000 foot buffer from the highway. So I've included language for average daily traffic count of 20,000 vehicles. That's well in excess of anything in town, but that is below the threshold for 84. So essentially, as you can see, these areas of up along FedEx, up along the highway here, those parcels would all be out. And then the areas along River Road near the park and the DOT parking lot there would also be out. So that portion of the DC zone where those gas stations are. So that's the first map. The second map that I'll show you is a 750 foot example buffer map. So again, just to sort of reiterate what I mentioned before, there is a parcel located right at that intersection there, sort of behind Dollar General, if you will, along River Road. That is a daycare facility. So basically creating a 750 foot buffer from that sort of discounts the parcels that could have a cannabis establishment. So I know it's a little bit tough to see, but this is Phelps Plaza here. I believe so, yes. So this is Phelps Plaza. This is Dollar General. Dunkin' Donuts is over here. So that whole area essentially, other than this, that sort of narrow piece there where the old River and Rail was, is essentially out. So hopefully I've addressed sort of the discussion last month. The only other thing that I would sort of suggest to the commission, we've got a public hearing which will be set and can happen as soon as August 16th. We can certainly push it back given what's on the agenda. But every day that goes by that we don't have any regulation, we're subject to an application. The commission could certainly adopt a regulation in the interim and then adopt subsequent prohibition. You have a lot of flexibility in that. So I just don't want to be in a position where we're forced to deal with an application in a way that we weren't prepared for. And I'll leave it at that and I'll move this. And The other thing I'll do is I'll make John T. a co-host, so if he has any comments.
Okay, so go ahead. You're gonna make him a co-host? All right. So in other words, right now, the two options are in front of us. And one of them has to go to a public hearing, the prohibition, correct? And we could do that as soon as the next meeting.
Which would be, yes, August 16th.
Okay. What's the thoughts on?
I have a question about
Go ahead, Yeah.
I know the courts traditionally allow wide discretion on behalf of planning and zoning commissions. Would we get ourselves into hot water by, I know we can't make a regulation that doesn't allow it to be done at all. We can't say it has to be a mile from everything. I know that's not allowed. You can't draft a regulation that says it's approved, but there's no way you can actually do it. Do we run a risk of, I don't know, of triggering that if we made a distance that narrowed it down so greatly that it wasn't practical? I don't know, just something to think about. So if we go to 1,000 and there's only, what, like, we've almost made, I'm not saying we did, but we've limited it further. Again, I know our experience has been when it goes to court, we lose all control. So we like to be in front of it and try to draft regulations that work for us.
We talked about that, and that's why I asked Ken to hang out.
Yes, and I appreciate it.
As long as we can show, based upon the reg written, that it can go somewhere, my understanding is that we're okay.
That's what I thought. But
Somewhere doesn't have to be 100 places.
Right, it just somewhere.
So I'd let Ken direct me that we're on.
I don't have much to add beyond that. I mean,
Okay, that's what I
if
thought.
it doesn't pass the smell test, if you drafted it in such a way that it was, that you, if you want to prohibit it, you prohibit it.
Yeah, right,
And,
yeah.
if you want to make it restrictive and you have distances, so there are very few places you can have it. Well, that's the same. It's a legislative judgment that you make. And as you said, courts will not generally interfere with your legislative judgment. But what Mike is also suggesting is that if you do nothing from the one that's teed up right now to be able to approve, then there's some risks associated with that. So if you adopted it, even if you then after the next public hearing, the legislature gets to change its mind all the time. So if right now at this moment you thought it made sense to adopt the one that allowed it with certain buffering in there, and then after the next public hearing on an outright prohibition, you decide to do that, then you change your mind and you change your rules. If you do nothing on it, then you're subject to, the ability of an application to come in for which you.
So in
don't have
other words, if
control.
we do nothing between now and August 16th, waiting for our public hearing on prohibition, if somebody comes along, then they basically have none of our regulations apply.
Yes, we are.
The other thing that I discussed with them was, how soon can a regulation be effective? The hearing could happen August 16th. You'd have to open it, close it, issue a decision, and then make it the regulation effective. So even
some time. Now.
And you have 200, 300 people who want to be heard. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but you got a lot of people you're going to want to be heard from on the previous application you had tonight. So are you realistically going to get this hearing open and closed and a decision made on the 16th?
Okay, so we petitioned ourselves for the zone change, or for this regulation, this draft regulation. Do the same rules apply? I was just kind of rereading Mark Francis stuff that he wrote years ago. We have public hearing closed a week. Are we still bound by that 65-day decision, 65-day window? We have to take this one off the table by a vote and then initiate the new one. Procedurally, am I tracking?
Treat them as two separate things. And so you've got the application you've already had the hearing on. The 65, 35, 65-day rule applies.
Okay.
That said, it's a legislative action, so there's no consequences for missing a deadline. Unlike a site plan or a subdivision, you blow the deadline, it gets approved. So if you didn't stay on that statutory deadline, especially on your own application, there really isn't any consequence to it. The real consequence is if you don't do anything, you run the risk of folks applying under your existing regs.
Which may or may not be what we want to do, but we would do it without regulations concerning it. Okay.
So am I to understand it's better to adopt something, so we have something on the books, and then go through the public hearing process on this one to possibly adopt this one instead, based on what we.
That's my my recommendation, subject to you not liking that, I mean, I can't put myself in your shoes of whether or not you like that regulation that's before you.
Right.
But generally speaking, yes, you're better off having something that's in your regulations to control it than having nothing. Even if you later on decide that you want nothing, in which case you can amend your rule.
So one of the things that I don't want to do is make you feel pressured into making any decisions. The legislature, or no, the state, DCP, has been behind on all their timelines so far. These licenses, my understanding, should have been issued. That process should have started. And so the pressure we were expecting would have been now. I don't know, Ken may know when those expectations kind of have where they've fallen now. I just don't want to be in that position. And you guys have to sort of weigh based upon what you're more comfortable with, taking a risk of having an application or taking a risk of adopting a regulation and being subject to one of those.
Right.
We know that there's a very small number issued in the first round. So in theory, if the first round of licenses is issued, the town could, go through and revise the regs again, second or third time. I don't know if Ken, do you have any insight into the time frame for those licenses?
No, they keep doing it. It's still a moving target, but for your purposes, someone could apply without having a license. Just like someone, the applicant that was ahead of us tonight, they do not have their ultimate customer. If your commission really loved that proposal, and obviously there's sentiment on both sides of it, you don't know who that is down the road. Somebody could come in with an application even though they don't yet have their state permit for it. And that's what that hedges, the regulation hedges against.
Okay. Being that this is just open discussion, right? So we're pretty much saying anything. I think that I don't really have any personal feelings about the usage of cannabis. I did kind of feel that some of the folks that had mentioned maybe we should wait a while and see what's going on around and see what sort of waiting for the dust to settle. I thought that kind of had some merit, that you didn't have to do this, but now we do want to establish some sort of regulation. So
Well, I'm the one that brought up at the last meeting about having the option of prohibition. Because personally, I'd like a choice, half the commission wants to vote for the regulations, so be it. Half wants to prohibit it, so be it. But it really doesn't leave a choice just with the regulation. If you don't vote for it, you open the door for it anyway. Something worse than what the regulations would be. So, that was my point.
If someone applies for a permit through us, they still have to go through, like we're going through the public hearing now.
sorry.
It's just a very short, it's got a short range, so.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes.
All right, yes, we can pass it around, or I can talk very loudly, if that works.
There you go, Andy.
No, I think I can handle it without the mic. Can you
All
hear
right.
me now?
All
All right, I will speak up, or I wasn't thinking about that.
Yeah.
I
All right,
understand.
good
Thank you.
point. You're welcome.
I was just wondering what the application process for someone coming in for a facility or whatever that does, if we don't, what's the process without anything on the books right now? Like, what's the timeline? Would that possibly, if we voted something in while something else was in process, does that conflict and cut?
You want me to jump in? So under the statute.
You might want to pass that down.
And I'm pretty loud myself.
Okay.
Under the statute, if you took no action then to regulate or to prohibit, and an application has come in, then you need to treat the use like the use that is closest to it in your existing regulations. So in a lot of towns, I had one approved, actually not for a private client who applied. They had an existing facility where they did medical cannabis, and they wanted to turn it into a hybrid. And it was a combination of looking at the way basically a liquor store would be treated, and the way a pharmacy would be treated. So if someone came in for recreational cannabis, staff would have to look at the regulations for a use that's closest. It's either going to be a retail or possibly if there is a specific liquor store provisions in your regulations, you might be applying them. So it could be potentially just a zoning permit that would be dealt with by staff. It could be something that would be a site plan that would be not discretionary, but would come before this commission, or it could be a special permit. I haven't studied the regulations, but in most towns, it's not a discretionary kind of approval, so that if you don't adopt a regulation like this, it's more along an application that they might be able to get approved either at a staff or a site plan level. I haven't studied your regs on this point, so, and I don't know whether Mike has, but you basically have to fit where is it closest to under your existing
Probably a
regulations.
liquor store.
And that's how you treat it.
But it also, you know, if we ended up with a cultivation facility that wanted to locate within the industrial zone along Ruby Road, that would be a different story. So we don't know what type of use it could be, retail or cultivation, and where. So it's not an exact science. One of the questions that I have for Ken, which just occurred to me, is, you know, generally speaking, if an application is submitted prior to a change in the zoning regulations, they're sort of in, right? They get their foot in the door. Because the commission has sort of started the process on a text amendment to potentially prohibit cannabis, would an application that someone walks in tomorrow and says, I want to open a cultivation facility, would that sort of stop them from having to be treated like a similar use because we've started the process?
No.
Until the
regulation is adopted and effective, the rule is what the statute says.
So let me make sure I understand that we have a draft regulation on the table and the public hearing has been closed. So that's all we have to work with right now. Our choice is to take a vote on that. And whether that passes or not would be, that would happen. And if it doesn't pass, then we're exactly where we are. And then we can reopen a public hearing on a different draft regulation, or a different regulation, not draft, a different regulation. We can do that at the next meeting, which would be the earliest, would be August 16th. So we'd be in limbo for a little while. The part I'm not quite sure of, if we say voted on this and it did pass, we can still open up another public hearing for a new regulation. Or
And vote on
we can
it
amend.
after we
So
close
we
it.
vote on the new one, it passes, we have some structure, and now we can manage what an application would be. We can then, at any time, it does not have to be August 16th, it could be any time going forward, we can choose to open it up again and amend that regulation. I think I understand that.
I would ask Ken to support or not, but I think once you have an establishment, let's say you have one.
Right.
And you decide we want to reevaluate, that could be in 6 months or 6 years. Because you have one that's located, I think the regulation, that idea that it can't go anywhere is sort of out, right? Because you have the use. Would they be more protected from increasing those separating distances because we have a facility that's been located correctly? We were sort of addressing the concern of we've created a regulation that can't ever be satisfied.
I'm not sure I understand. So you created the regulation that's before the commission right now, and they approved it.
Yep, and then we have somebody locate an establishment per the regs.
Right.
A year later, the commission says, we want to reevaluate this, we decide we don't like the use, and they really pump up those distances. Because we have one that's been located, are we better protected from someone saying that the regulations don't allow use anywhere? That was just one of those original questions that they have.
Well, no, it depends how you did it. If you did an outright prohibition, let's say you did the experiment, you thought it was a good idea, and a facility was established, and the commission decides that, okay, we've had our experiment, this isn't right for Willington, we're going to go into a different direction. That use would remain legal as a legal non-conforming use. But if you then prohibited it otherwise, that's what the regulation would say, what the regulations say. So you could, in the future, prohibit it, and the one.
That business could remain. When they
Right.
moved out, no one else could move back in.
And well, in that particular, no, in that particular facility, it runs with the land, not the owner.
That's
So
right,
that
that's
could
right.
con-
That's a good, very good.
It could continue
It's
in
the
that
land use,
location.
not the owner.
Exactly.
I just read that.
But I think whether or not a particular regulation, passed what I was calling the straight face test before, if you kind of, you made it in a way that with a wink and a nod, you were trying to accomplish something, it's never a good idea. You
No.
Make your policy decisions, make them clear and adopt them. And I think that judgments are made all the time. Uses that made a lot of sense in the town in 1970 might not make sense in 2020. So if you did allow it and you decided not to prohibit it in a couple of months, when that hearing comes up, and 2 years down the road, you've decided, you need to tweak it, you need to change it, you can do that like you can with all other land uses. The only trick with cannabis is if you do nothing, then the statute tells you how you have to handle it, which is different than most land uses. Most land uses, if it's not specifically allowed in the regulation, it's prohibited. And the legislature stepped in and said, well, no, not in this case. In this case, you got to allow it like the closest use that you regulate.
All right. Can we vote on this?
Yes.
Do we have enough people? We have 4 out of 7. It says a zone change requires a majority of the commission.
We have John Tian and.
John Tian is here too.
Oh, they're on, perfect. All right,
Yeah.
we forgot about that. We're good. We're good, very good. So that's awesome.
Move it. John, if you're gonna say anything, now's the time.
Okay, now's my chance, huh? As you know from our last meeting, I'm in favor of this package as written, and I would move to approve this package as written right now.
I'd rather have something in place to protect us as a town than have nothing and something go in, or more than one something that we have no control over it right now. Not saying I'm for or against the law.
So if we vote on this, are we voting for the number 2 change under 3.1?
You could vote to include that, or you could vote to strike that. That would be up to you guys. That was just something that I included as a conversation topic in the last meeting.
I'll follow through on what John is saying. I'd make a motion that we adopt the regulations striking number 2, the red number 2 under 3.1 cannabis retailers and hybrid retailers.
I think a motion's just been made. Right?
Seconded.
You want to second it? Right? I don't know.
John made a motion.
Then you made.
John
one.
make a motion
So both
first?
of
Yeah,
you
he
guys,
made a
you can't do
motion
it.
with he made a motion that was unqualified. He just said to approve as presented.
I didn't actually hear that. Okay, my bad.
I would second Bob's motion. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll second Bob's motion.
So that was
Oh,
approved for
discussion?
striking the red.
Any
striking-
discussion?
Well,
Yes, striking number 2.
striking number
See, I
2.
would have, I'm gonna say that was one thing that would have pushed me a certain direction, keeping that in there. I like that, having dealt with the area around the highway, I can see that as being an issue, having anything up right close to that.
All right, so we have a motion made and seconded.
Mhm.
All right, all in favor? I'm a no. I'm a no.
I'm a yes.
I'll vote yes.
Okay. John and Bob are yes. I'm a no so far.
I'm a no with this.
Rebecca's a no.
I'm thinking.
Joe, Joe Hall, I'm a yes.
What are you, Joe?
A yes.
Okay. He's a yes.
We can change it.
Well, I think I'm a yes. I'm gonna vote yes, because I want to have something on the books.
Okay.
Or yes. and no.
Yes. That's incorrect. All right, so we're still gonna have a public hearing though on the prohibition.
Whatever you want to do
Okay.
that, you want to do the 16th?
I think in the 16th, it's gonna get in the way, to tell you the truth. I think
Yeah,
we have to
I
get
would
through.
agree.
I think we have to, I think it needs to go into September.
Okay.
We've got something.
So what I'll do is, I'll run a legal notice of decision for this, and we'll set the public hearing for cannabis for the first meeting in September, and then based on the agenda, we can always push it. Sorry,
Okay. All right, so there, at least something's there.
All right, folks, I'll see you
All
next
right,
month.
thank you. All right, item G, approval of minutes, July 5th, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 5th, 2022, as it's written. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. John? TN?
Aye.
Go ahead, all right.
Joe Hall abstain. I didn't have a chance to finish reviewing.
Okay. Joe abstained. All right, any item H, correspondence?
no correspondence, other than the items received as part of the public hearing, which are part of the record, but nothing outside.
Okay. All right, item I, public participation for items not in the agenda.
I'd like to say something.
You're not the public.
I know, but still present to speak. I want to just sort of reiterate to the public that our excellent land use agent does not speak for the commission. That it is if any public inquiry is going to be directed anywhere. I mean, other than routine things that are well within the regulations. Any thoughts, comments, and opinions really need to be directed to the commission and not to Mike D'Amato. It's not, he's not doing that. We don't even have to follow his recommendations. We're not bound by what he decides. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, because I don't like to see individuals being targeted as like just negatively. It's not right. If you want to complain to the commission, that's great, but don't target the land use people, because that's not fair. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, anything out of the public? Nick?
48 Mason Road. I just want to make a note that, as I recall, the conditions for approving Love's Travel Stop, they were required to have a water quality plan, and they have a water quality plan in place that states that they have to provide quarterly reports. And I did request the report, and Mike did send me the most recent one, which was in June, but they're not doing quarterly reports. They had a summary in June of what they've done for the past year. So I'd like to just make that a note to this commission, because I know Inland Wetlands is not meeting regularly. They've canceled a lot of their meetings, but I do believe it's part of your conditions of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Go ahead.
Oh, hi, everybody. How about that? James Marshall, 46 Fisher Hill. I just want to start out by saying thank you guys for hearing this and preparing with it. I know there's a lot of public frustration related to items on the agenda, and it's not an easy job, so thank you. I also want to say I appreciate Mr. D'Amato's attentiveness. I've been asking a lot of questions. I've been a pain in the butt. I get that. And I appreciate the fact that you have been very responsive, more so than I think I've seen in other boards or committees so far. I will say though, I have a question if I can ask you guys. I don't know if this can be a back and forth, not about a specific item. Correct. I just, as a procedural question, when a public hearing is, I'm trying to understand the statutory requirements for opening and closing a public hearing. So once it's open, there's a 35-day limit before that needs to be closed. Is that correct?
35 days, with 65 days on sanctioned grounds.
Okay, so this commission would have to vote to extend it if, say, public comment were not able to be. I guess my question is, you know, given the attentiveness and there will be other items on the agenda, how are you going to get through everything? And, you know, we're waiting, you're at day 28 with August 16th, you know, on that agenda. So, you know, it surprised me when you guys had a 4-week window before the next hearing, given the attentiveness both on the cannabis regulations and, you know, the other items on the agenda. I didn't know if there was opportunity to schedule something beforehand, so you didn't have to push back other agenda items so late. I mean, you talked about the cannabis regulation now and wanting to hear that on the 16th, but worrying it would get in the way. So I asked that respectfully. I don't know what the procedural requirements are for voting for a sooner continuation of a public hearing. I throw that out there as a thought. I understand that. I understand that.
It's not a good feeling when you show up and you don't have enough people that have to be ready to go. Sometimes you don't find out.
I get that. You know, but people can't communicate and, you know, send out a poll. There's lots of ways of doing that, just as a thought. So the other, you know, the other thing I will say is that we have had a month since, you know, we decided to make this a hybrid meeting. It is a little disappointing to realize that we can't even get more than one mic in here, just as a thought. You know, it's also disappointing, you know, to me personally, that that the public isn't able to share materials or present. Like, I could bring in a post report, but that does no good to the people attending remotely. Same thing, you know, I had hoped to speak to you guys tonight in person. I have, you know, stuff to talk about. It was a very short meeting because we had a very long introductory speech.
Well, let me make a point about the introductory speech, though.
I get it's important.
So if we don't hear that, we're expected to make a decision on this. If we don't hear that the applicant's presentation, we didn't have the benefit of going to the thing at the packing house or any of that.
Understood.
Many of us should have been, for all of us, that's the first time we heard.
I'm not criticizing his opportunity to speak. I'm criticizing just that it was a very abbreviated public hearing session at this meeting. You know, but going back to the point about being able to share, like, I'm not able to attend. I'm on that list to speak, for example, wherever that list went. So at the next meeting, I may need to be remote. I can't share. I can't hand you anything physically, you know, so it prohibits my ability to speak directly with you, or honestly speak directly with the members. You have two members in attendance today remotely who may or may not be able to follow along with any conversations if there were materials we wanted to reference. I just think it's a disappointment. And I understand there is probably some reasoning behind it, but I hope that we can address that moving forward, knowing that hybrid is probably going to be going on for a while. And there are some clearly hot button issues, you know, on the table that people would like to speak to. So that's it. I don't want to drag this out anymore. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
We'll take it first, then we'll go to the online. Go ahead, Nick.
Nicholas Stella, 49 Myrtle. Just something, speaking in terms of any legal activity, I feel that if something is federally illegal, that we have the ability to prohibit something in town, being that federal law would back us. However, to get into my original written comments here, I want to state, when I click on different departments and boards on town pages, I go to willingtonct.gov, and then the file is there. However, when I click on some of the zoning pages, I click on it and it ends up to Mike's company. Kind of concerning that it goes to Mike's company, not to willingtonct.gov. On not all zoning links, files, but some do go to his company. So kind of concerning seeing that. I understand that he's not a town employee, and I understand what the comments you made earlier, but still have, it's not just my frustration, but other people too. So I understand that he's not a town employee and he's a contractor, but that does not mean his files, again, should be going to his company. How do we know we will retrieve all these files if he was to leave? I would like to see going forward that these files are saved on a Willington network, like other departments are. I do have concerns with partnerships with Mike and John Guskowski that they have going on in this town. I do not feel as they have the interest of maintaining the rural identity of Willington, of what Willington is. I see Mike and John are co-owners of Tyke. I may be pronouncing the company wrong. And they also are contact personnel for the EDC along with Erica. I just see these two partnering and trying to push development in Willington more than preserving it. I feel as though Mike should not be acting zoning agent and affiliated with the EDC. It gives the perception of trying to build Willington. I would like to respectfully request to have Mike's contract with the town made public for transparency purposes. Again, I hope to see the town pursue a zoning agent that has an interest in Willington at heart and not one trying to build a resume of how to develop a rural community. Thank you.
Harris? See a hand up online. What's the first name there? Harris at EMS.
Yeah, he's here. Wait a second. Dad, your hand's up there. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, your hand's up online with.
Yeah, gentlemen, is Richard Perisic on?
We put you on here.
Oh.
Okay, sorry.
Hello.
There.
Hear you.
Are you asking for comment now or no? In August?
You have something to say?
Well, I at this point, I would probably be better to present it, with the rest of the people on the 16th.
All right, yeah, we can't go into that right now because the meeting's been continued till next week, but we'll see you on the 16th.
Right, but we do have some observations that are important from a long-term perspective, and it's probably not appropriate to give highlights of it now, but just do it all at one time, right?
Now, because we can't speak about anything that was on the agenda right now.
Right, okay. But thank you for the opportunity to present, and we will be in the Connecticut area for a wedding at that time, so I expect to be present in person.
If you have any questions, you can send them to Mike D'Amato, and we can have them at the meeting, or any comments.
Is it possible for him to make comments himself when he's there, because he's going to be there on the 16th?
If you're there on the 16th, you can make the comments.
Yeah, that's the plan now, because we have a family wedding that week, so we would be in Connecticut and plan to attend.
All right, enjoy the wedding.
All right, thank you kindly.
Thank you. Steph Summers.
Hi, Steph Summers, 4Y Road. I just had a couple of process. Oh,
sorry.
There was can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I just had a couple of process questions, and one was because I'm on Zoom this time, and I just wondered how many speakers were left who were on the list.
There was another page and almost a half.
Okay, and then that's not including the online speakers, and there were like at the height something like 155 people on there.
Next meeting, we want to move like the cannabis stuff off, like for a public hearing sometime possibly in September to give more time for this. So we can.
Good. You mean on August 16th?
Yes.
And the second process question I have is there were several people who mentioned a letter from Don Perizek and a letter from Kathy Demers. How can we see those letters? Aren't they a matter of public record?
Online.
You click on the
They're
agenda.
linked, they're linked for the agenda.
Okay, so that's all on today's agenda?
Yes.
Okay. And any ones that are spurred from this meeting or come in between, those will be on the 16th agenda? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate what you all are doing.
Well, Sarah, who's next? Jessica? Jessica.
Hi, I just would request that everybody use the microphone because there are a number of us, like Steph said, I think I counted 154. She got another one. And I can't really hear you when you're responding. And if you could perhaps instruct people to use the microphone because this way we can hear. And my thanks to everybody in the town and for your commission. This is not easy work, and I appreciate everybody working hard for us to do the best for our town. That's it.
We're gonna need more microphones.
It's hard to turn the gymnasium into
I can't hear you, so.
Jessica?
Yes, hi. Good evening. I'm Jessica Uzemblo of 25 Wilderness Way. First, I'd like to thank Mike for providing the maps that he did for the outline of the barriers for the cannabis centers, or where they can be placed. I appreciate him listening and hearing the community when we had our public hearing. I guess my only question is, I got disconnected, so I apologize if this was already discussed, but can you just explain to me what was voted on? I heard someone say that they didn't like a section of the regulation, so I'm just not quite sure what was approved and what was not approved.
What was voted on was the regulations as presented in the last meeting. We can't get too deep into this because it's something that's on the agenda, but it was the regulations as they sat in the last meeting. Any of the strike-throughs that were on it tonight were not voted on.
Okay, so I guess that was my confusion. I'm not quite sure what it means when you strike something from the regulation. It means that that's not something you agree with, or that's something that needs to be addressed later?
They were just potential markups that weren't decided, was decided not to pursue them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, who else do we have? Michelle?
Yeah, right.
Hi, this is Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. I'm on my wife's iPad. I just want to thank the commission for sticking it out tonight and having patience. As you probably know, your board runs much differently than any other boards on town. And some of us townspeople aren't exactly familiar with how it runs. So I appreciate you chairing and sticking through everything and everybody sticking out late tonight. My only other comment that I wanted to make is somebody on the commission, and I'm sorry, the gentleman in blue, I don't know your name. You made a statement that you'd like people to reach out directly to the commission, and I'm having trouble finding your contact information. And I tried the standard first initial last name at willingtonct.gov, and those emails got kicked back as no good. So if you could make it more accessible for us to be able to contact you, I'm all for it. So thank you.
I don't think I meant contact me personally.
One of the things one of the best ways to get a hold of the commission is through Mike, and he funnels it through us, because one thing that has to be done with this commission, you kind of have to share information with the commission. You can't have one person just getting stuff that no one else has, because that would create an issue for us.
Okay, then that was my confusion. It seemed like the gentleman said he wanted the information to go to everybody and not just Mike. So I guess that's where my confusion was. That's my fault.
I think Andy was making an attempt to stick up for Mike.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yes, we want to make sure we send information through Mike or whoever the zoning agent may be on staff, you know, in the future, it may not necessarily be Mike, you know, but whoever the zoning agent is, and that way they get into the rest of the commission and they make sure the rules are followed the way it's disseminated.
Okay, thank you.
Come directly to Mike. Or to the PZC meetings, even better, so. All right, thank you, Ari. I see another hands up. I see Ralph, who's been so silent tonight. Hi, Ralph.
Do I get a chance to say something?
You do, Ralph. Go ahead. You're gonna critique us? What are you gonna do, Ralph? Come on.
You did it on the mic or not?
All right. Give him a mic.
This is the mechanics, the agendas. That's what I want to comment on. In the past, in parentheses, following an item on the agenda was the receive date, a time frame to schedule a public hearing, a time to close a public hearing, notation as to whether or not an extension was requested and granted. And I think it behooves both the commission and the public who's reading this stuff to understand the kind of deadlines or timeframes that everyone has to act or react to. And I would like to see that reinstated. I think it would be very helpful for everyone.
You got that one, Mike?
You understand what I'm saying, Mike?
No, we
I
used
hope.
to have that in this is the old one.
Set it here, call it public hearing by X date, blah, blah, blah. Used to say that right on the line.
Well, I could pull up an old set of minutes if you all want to see it, but that's all I wanted to comment on.
All right, no, that's a good point, Ralph. Anything that make it a little easier to understand. All right, any further comments? Steph Summers.
Hey, sorry about that. I just wanted to follow up that there were no letters on the materials for July 19th. So I'm wondering, did they not make a cutoff or whatever? Because I know several people who have written letters.
Letters were there.
I saw it too.
We think they're there. I think we saw them.
Really? Okay. I'm not seeing it when I hit that little blue chiclet that says meeting app, you know, I'm seeing the cannabis stuff and everything.
No, it should be under public comment. It's in there. You may have to dig through folders.
You have to click on, if you click the River Road application folder, there's
Okay,
a folder in there with about 11 documents.
thank you.
You see them?
Yeah, thanks.
Good. All right. that for session.
I don't have anything additional.
I want to kill another minute.
Quite frankly, I do not.
All right. Let's see, it is.
Don't adjourn yet. I want to ask
It
you a
is
couple of questions.
10, what's that, Andy?
I got a couple of questions
Okay.
before we adjourn. I
Go
don't want to
ahead.
adjourn just
Go
yet.
ahead, I was gonna pull the trigger.
No, I know. I was just, because I was curious about public hearings. It's, and as I understand it, public hearings we have an application for the zone change to PDRDZ, whatever it is. The applicant has to give us permission to extend. We don't have the right to extend on our own. So if they say, sorry, no more extensions, that's when the 35-day clock starts ticking. Once that closes, they have time. I mean, I think this thing is a little different where they have different times to submit, but that's our thing. Okay, and I was just curious too, I thought that we had talked about that things couldn't be presented in person. Did you, but I'm thinking this is an evidentiary public hearing. There are many documents that come in that the people online cannot see. So why would someone be discouraged from presenting something, a chart or a graph that they wanted to put on a whiteboard? Yeah, a lot of people can't see it. We've certainly done that in other public hearings where people have brought things in. It's the online viewers that lose the ability to see that, but the evidence is still, this is our evidence. This is not necessarily online public evidence. Am I?
We've been handed things lots of times. during
Exactly
the-
right. So why would
The truck stop being one of them. We got all kinds of stuff.
A lot of people had things to say and good things to say.
So
Why would that be any different, just because we're online now?
there's two sort of unrelated points. One, no one is prohibited, as they did tonight, from handing you a document during the hearing. That is part of that whole process.
Right.
One of the comments made was related to the public wanting to take control of sharing screen through. Zoom.
Yes, that's
So
true.
that was what we said we couldn't do because of the
Correct.
50 people.
Right.
So that's one piece.
Okay, that's right. I forgot about
The
that.
statutes and the law related to hybrid and virtual meetings make very clear that we have to provide some type of mechanism to the best of our ability so that people attending remotely, particularly because we have two commissioners, can see and hear in real time. So we don't want to be in a situation where someone presents something and John and Joe can't see it.
Ah, yes.
So from a logistical standpoint.
Yep, that's the problem.
We've tried to.
So if someone said, emailed you something, I'm on the list to talk, and they emailed you, you could present.
So all of the comments, many of the people that are on the list emailed their comments, and they're part of the public hearing record. They're posted online so that you guys have them.
Yep.
Because some of them are multiple pages, and we can't scroll through and have members of the public on Zoom or here taking control of the content.
Of course, no, that makes sense.
Right.
But they can certainly present it to you tangibly here and hand it over.
So if I wanted to come in and do a graph on a whiteboard, if I took a picture of that whiteboard, sent it to you, and that could be put into the folder with the documents, then that person could present that whiteboard to the public, and all the viewers offline would have evidence of it, and we're finding it.
Exactly. So,
okay,
but
that could work.
That link that is hosted, and just to kind of back up on that, I put that document through my OneDrive account because the town, when we went to virtual, did not have the technology through the website to support the file sizes that accommodate some of the documents that we see. That link is live. So the second I get the email, it goes up in a PDF and it's populated for everybody to see. So if they send it to me, it's going to go to the agenda. And now everybody that's using the agenda to attend via Zoom can see those documents in real time.
I'll make this comment. When you're in person at a meeting, facing the people who you're having, you get more out of the meeting being here.
Absolutely.
It's just not the same. You know, granted, yes, we have to do the hybrid meetings. I understand completely. I deal with them at work as well. But you lose something when you're not there directly connected with the public or who's ever there. This is much better. This is much better for me, you know, when being here than looking at a computer screen, trying to figure out who's who and calling on people. Go ahead.
We don't have a policy for that. I mean, I guess it's just a matter of.
I didn't hear what.
No, if he gives the information to Mike, why can't Mike share it?
Oh.
And I just made that.
Yeah. I don't know.
The only thing I could think of is like tonight, I didn't give people a time limit. I could have, we could have said everybody has 3 minutes to talk. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to hear people and what they had to say. It's a big issue for a lot of people. I want to hear, I just want to hear it. I want to hear the emotion. I want to hear what people have to say. I think we all need to hear it. And I didn't want to like, oh, yeah, enough, you know, you're going off track a little bit, stop, you know, so it's just something that I guess we got to see what it is. If it's 40 pages long, I don't think we can tie up a whole meeting with it. If it's a couple of pages or something of pertinent information, I don't see an issue.
When I spoke
just
with
gets
Jim
oh, yeah,
about,
it's hard to
basically,
read it.
what I tried to convey to him was what we do for one, we have to do
Yeah.
for all. And if we have 300 people all asking this,
Yeah.
it's something we can't accommodate. And I'm not making that decision. That's a decision you guys make. But it's something we have to be very concise with what we do.
Agreed, and we don't have endless time. You know, there's a clock that ticks on all these. You know, we want to make sure that the people that want to get up and speak have that chance. And, you know, if we tie them up with too many charts and graphs and things, then something's got to give. Something's got to give.
So if we get it ahead of time, I can get you those
Yep.
copies prior to the meeting.
Yes, that would be helpful. And
Sure.
if we get something that's something well-written and good, I'll certainly read it before I come in here.
Right.
Well, I read everything that was
Yep,
online.
so did I.
This meeting,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, we read it. But I suppose if somebody wanted to do a public presentation and they send in the material, we could probably share that to the viewers if somebody's taking the time to do it here. Would that be a fair assessment? Maybe?
That's
Well,
not a
right,
decision I'm making.
but again,
See,
if we're gonna allow everybody to speak, it might be, tonight's the 3-minute limit. You might have sent in 40 pages, you still only get 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's not.
You know, I
yeah.
mean, like, we could still manage it and still try to accommodate everybody.
But we couldn't manage 5 30-page
We could not, no.
dissertations.
No.
I mean, it gets to a point where
And-
it's
and
overwhelming.
in reality, there's not going to be 50 people that do presentations
That's
like that. You might have 1 or 2 that get into that. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to be, everybody's just
Well-
not, doesn't have the wherewithal to do it or nor they want to. So, all right, thanks for the
Good stuff.
comments, James. All right, so it is 10:50, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.